Okay, actually, quickly, I'm just gonna say this now. The flip was completely messed up. On tablet, it says that we are negative second. They wanted us to be at second, so we are at second. If that makes sense. So in this debate, we will be defending the affirmative side. On tab room, it says that we are the negative. So keep that in mind when you are voting.
Yeah. So when you vote, you say either vote Nueva on the neg if you're voting app, and you say vote Carrollton on the app if you're voting neg.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Vote for the team.
Just vote for the team, and then it'll make sense from there, I think. Sorry, y'all. You want to set up an email chain or a speech drop?
I'm cool with email chain.
Okay.
1 second.
Okay. Here it is for you. Yep. Alright, which email do you want me to use? Either both. Yeah. rmiran269@Fairmont, or just r5002@gmail, and then also your.
Do the one in the Berkeley one.
Okay.
That would be easy.
Oh, here I got you. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Michael was lost. Yes. Very awesome.
Don't care. Green Wave is on the chain, right?
Yeah.
Just Drew Foster.
Yep.
Cool. So once y'all get the chain, we'll be ready to start. Or like once you get it and send the app or the negative. Paper I can borrow.
We'd like note paper right here, but if they have points,
How many should see
better.
2. Thank you. Is that plus 0.1 to speak?
I'll consider it.
No one's done a staring contest yet, so
Well, I'm too worried I'm gonna lose.
Okay.
If you let people get it, even if they won, or even if they lost.
what happens if you lose a staring contest?
No, I just give you normal speaks.
Okay.
But like, I'm gonna get clowned if I lose a staring contest on live stream.
Give me a staring contest with the stream. I'm ready to go whenever you are. All right.
Just the email.
Let's read it up.
Got it.
All right, I'm Audrey Browning speaking first for Carrollton on the negative. Is anybody not ready? All right, my time begins Now, looking at negate the resolve contention one is civil war. Tensions in Somaliland have de-escalated and the path has been laid for lasting peace, as Adgar 24 explains that the Horn of Africa has witnessed significant development with de-escalating, reducing the immediate threat of conflict. While the agreement represents a diplomatic breakthrough, Somaliland remains a critical issue. Complexities demand sustained cooperation. Unresolved issues underscore fragility of peace. The path forward hinges on sustained dialogue. The AU sets precedent for international recognition. As Sports 21 writes, the AU led the process to resolve Somaliland's status and its legitimacy to act authoritatively. The international community, besides considering their own interests, countries look to the AU if accepted. Somaliland would be joined to the UN. AF sparks civil war, clan dynamics, ensure conflict, minority factions with large support, distracts independence, and formidable movements. As Batten 22 explains, there is strong opposition by many Somalilanders against recognition. A power struggle between clans and clans oppose recognition because that will translate to aid in the government. It's controlled by the ISAC. The fear is that aid will allow the ISAC to dominate other clans, increase anxieties, and clans will openly discuss civil war. All it takes is a few people to lead civil war. Independently affirming Greek's FBI, which causes inequality-driven conflict based on class corruption, as said 23 writes that Somaliland has limited financial aid due to lack of recognition. In Somaliland, FBI increases inequality and triggers conflicts benefiting only a small number of people. Conflicts arise due to increased inequality between poor and elite. Inequalities affect the same people, and it's easier for them to fight back. The impact is both war and instability. Somaliland's civil war causes mass displacement and death and draws in great powers. As 1423 explains, that fighting between Somaliland clans threatens the broader region, and thousands are displaced, drawing in forces. Puntland and Al Shabaab take full advantage of instability. Global and regional powers battle for the Horn's resources and erode stability in the region. Condition 2 is terror. Terrorism in Somalia is on the decline, reaching all-time lows, as CAG in November states. There's been a decline in Al-Shabaab linked to a co-op between security forces. There's been a significant improvement in deterrence and disruption of attacks, a 60% reduction, and propaganda has decreased. Current mediation ensures Ethiopian troops and AU peacekeeping remains in Somalia. The deal is contingent on not recognizing Somaliland. As Solia in December explains, with Somaliland and Ethiopia, or Somalia and Ethiopia reached an agreement that addressed demands for both. Somalia secured recognition of its territorial unity, and Somalia confirmed Ethiopian troops would remain. Al-Shabaab resistance is only working because of outside help, funding, and divided military and low morale. As Williams 24 explains, the EU played a vital role against Al-Shabaab, remaining dependent on external assistance. The army requires more funding than the government can afford alone. Somalia's bickering leaders failed to clarify structures between the government and countries and member states. Al-Shabaab force is cohesive, and Al-Shabaab maintained high levels of confidence. The app disrupts AU forces in anger, and Somalia gets sidetracked by tensions with African states. As Phillips 24 writes, that Ethiopia to recognize Somaliland, Somali authorities threatening to expel Ethiopian troops, helping them to fight Al-Shabaab. Its quarrel allowed Al-Shabaab to regain territory. Ethiopian AU relations in Somalia are key to stability and counter-terror operations. Backsliding will lead to piracy, war, and starvation. As Coke 24 explains, the strained relations with Ethiopia undermines AU's peacekeeping, of which Ethiopia is a main contributor. Somalia called Ethiopia to leave. The AU will not endorse a plan that antagonists Ethiopia, resulting in security vacuum, will create conditions for Al-Shabaab to conquer and destabilize state governments, enter Somalian frictions, and the vital blow fragmenting action which Al-Shabaab will exploit, creating chaos for private groups to exploit, and affirming breeds recruitment and fear group. As Williams 24 explains, Al-Shabaab launched a recruitment campaign drawing on anchor at the MOU. The MOU included Ethiopia's willingness to recognize Somaliland. Al-Shabaab called Somalis to stop Ethiopian interference that impacts instability. Al-Shabaab causes mass instability, escalation of conflict, and expansion of operations in Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia, and increases the risk of other terrorist rises. As Al-Qaeda 24 explains, that war on terrorism is far from over. Al-Shabaab aimed to extend operations beyond Somalia to destabilize the region. It's natural for terrorist organizations to think about geographical area that would be easier to terrorize and control. African stability with nuclear, multiple actors with invested interests in hotspots. As Finnegan 20 continues, that African conflicts and tensions starting to flare up into new war. Leaders ended arms control, lowered barriers to new war. Terrorism seizes instability across Africa. The northeastern corner, a hotspot with violence terrorizing millions. African violence spills over and threatens to second the whole region, resolving into war. Imperial U.S. interests from the Red Sea to Europe. For those reasons, we're proud of the game.
Pull some of that. Thanks for that. Right here.
Yeah, we'll make the table fit taller. Right. Over, I did not get the card you side.
Use the share method.
I'll send the one I see. What I see is what I see should be sent. Probably a bit to start.
Okay. Got it.
Are you all good to go?
Yeah.
Great. Our sole contingent is basing recognition is key to enable foreign basing in Somaliland for 124. The goal for it is made neighboring Djibouti help foreign bases China, France, Japan, and the U.S. all facilities Somalia will further these relationships without recognition. Recognition spills over to the UN and U.S. per the Schwartz evidence. The AU will mediate separation, enable international cooperation. Schwartz 21. Strong mediation overcome preconditions, often delays. Young Somalia negotiators and crux of the issue growing instability calls for greater stability, which clarity would achieve if Somalia would be able to assist Somalia with security challenges, solve systemic regional issues, negotiations, and jurisdictional security issues. The AU has mandated to combat mediate peace making determinations, and already compels Somalia to negotiate. Somaliland is eager and willing to host troops, but it's not eminent. Joseph 24. Somaliland announced willingness to allow the U.S. and military base in Berbera and allies with mutual interest and ultimately hold to keep position on international around the city has been central to Somaliland's economic security considerations. Bases are good. 3 scenarios. A. Piracy is growing in threat of global trade. Piracy 24. Rates are piling risk and cost on shipping companies contending with repeated strikes, more than 20 hijackings, some driven up prices of security, Somalia reduced their operations. The problem could escalate the busiest shipping lanes passing the Golden Haven on the shores gravitating Europe and Asia. The end of the monsoon season push further south and east. Piracy decks global growth, breaking us now. CRS 24. Attacking ultimately disrupting global supply chains, forcing vessels into long costly journeys around Africa, disruptions, compound challenges, economic effects of attacks have been limited thus far. This remains far greater near-term risk of prolonged disruptions to shipping contributes to global inflation and driving the global economy. Only recognition enables collaborative missions in Somaliland. Clap on 11. Non-recognition means Somaliland stands outside the mechanisms established by the international system. The interests to play a role responsible to state that Somaliland coast borders are made intended by pirates collaboration, including use of Somaliland ports by other navies to prevent non-recognition, prevent states, prevent necessary assistance, including trading weapon grade. And naval bases are a highly effective way to address piracy down to all 21. Naval bases provide essential logistical and operational support, increase maritime defense capabilities by robust programs in place, coastal navies provide effective means of presence on the bases to serve as piracy, lowering the number of attacks. So growth causes great power war, ranks 21. So it makes it hard to keep public highly fearing on people, leaders grab the resources, making nationals and the country, many countries follow this path when the U.S. economic surge and Washington engaged in imperial expansion, facing slow down, Putin invaded 2 countries with fair take military religious having fear of decline and powerful motive for urgent expansion. Stable supply chains independently de-escalate nuclear war. Con 16. Supply chains mission centers for conflict forces falling to zero, containing them at a regional level rather than allowing them to spill over global stability hinges on whether great powers act in terms of supply chains, fighting Chicago wars and a real thing, trade linkages, still grievances, nuclear stability hinges on global supply chains. BE is terror. Current U.S. basing in Djibouti is unsustainable and causes miscalc with China after 3 bases to Somalia, which solves miscalc, hedge, and Al-Shabaab, adding 22. The U.S. should find the location houses presses Djibouti ties with China to make it unsuitable. Djibouti is only your only permanent presence for the U.S. Central efforts to combat terrorism and allowing for Somaliland as an alternative to Chinese presence 6 miles from the U.S. fears of confrontation are increasing China's base point. Lasers at U.S. planes influence in Djibouti allow pressure on authorities to ask the U.S. to remove base location. Somalia would be especially useful in confronting Al-Shabaab. Recognition is necessary to ensure counter-terror efforts to succeed and enables arms to the Coast Guard and Army. Horn 19. Somalia's arms embargoes in place. Somalia's army service between acute sources of critical equipment. Somalia's Coast Guard faces challenges. They will patrol coastal areas, new pipeline, and Al-Shabaab IS small vessels to move material into Somaliland. Its unrecognized status puts pressure on its national budget. Yemen has led to a dramatic increase in weapons trafficking. Without its assistance, Somaliland be compromised. Failure to beat Al-Shabaab causes broader African instability. They read the LDP evidence onto Ray 22, which tells you African instability causes and exacerbates numerous existential threats. Africa's growing population will have impact large source of recruits for extremist movements, terrorist organizations increase, and could become an international threat. The Russian never abandoned the continent. U.S. China seem like the Cold War redo. Africa will have a significant impact on the world cycle party, sailing violence. U.S. China war is existential. Challenge 18. Those who give any first time will be in recipe for escalation. China has nuclear weapons on the conventional campaign with President's nuclear arsenal. Leaders use weapons less label, more risky than nuclear confrontation. C is economy. Basing is critical to enable college protecting and increase regional stability. Demand for furloughing is 18. Basing protecting works providing encouragement to other nations, indoor states, foreign policy, non-state actors benefit, such as companies doing business in the peaceful environment. Cut the card there. FDI and trade benefits from increased U.S. deployment. Best empirical studies prove. Heroin U19. There was a positive simulation. Military deployment, host states, economic performance, military different lines, positive effect on FDI, host security, and provided investment friendly environment each of the 100 years. So deployment increase investment and a 20 million increase in the host country's trade. Lastly, poverty is a preeminent condition for incident violence. Graph 10. Poor states are vulnerable to violent extremists. Further poverty and violence in store unless there is a break cycle. Violence is more likely to arise. Cut the card there. Causes extinction per ray.
Good for cost.
Yeah.
All right. I'll start that clock now. So let's look at your subpoint A of piracy. Absent of vermin, when do we see the impact?
We'd say you can look to the preceding evidence is pretty good. It tells you that it really kicks in at the end of the monsoon season, which ends in about March.
Sounds good.
Okay. Can I have a question?
Yeah.
Let's start on terror.
Mm-hmm.
You read me this Kiaga evidence?
Yeah.
This Kiaga evidence is all about Kenya. How do we apply it to Somalia?
Which evidence are you referencing?
The Kiaga
Will we
evidence.
read at the top?
The one at the top, terror, yeah.
The terrorism in Somalia is at an all-time low.
Okay, but it's from the Nairobi News and it's about the northeastern counties of Kenya. So why is it tagged to say it's about Somalia when it's not?
I mean, like you can pull a specific part. We can look that up.
Here, can you just point me to a part that says Somalia?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Yes, let me tell you that Al-Shabaab operating in Somalia is at all time as well.
Where?
It tells that the operations of activity, the decline in activities for Al-Shabaab are at all-time low when you cross the border to Somalia.
But if the evidence is about Kenya, how can you cross the border?
I mean, do you have evidence saying that Al-Shabaab activities are happening in Somaliland?
Yes,
all
and
the time?
yeah, I'm gonna read it in the next speech.
Okay, can I get that after cross then? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a question.
Thanks. All right, let's look at this terror. So like, I feel like this link from US China, or like this failure, or this link from failure to beat Al-Shabaab causing African instability just jumps directly to US China war. Like, what is the link there?
Oh, the US-China war, we get to that link through that first card, which tells you that the current US basing in Djibouti is causing a miscalculation scenario with China because of the fact that our bases are very close together and they're actively shooting lasers at our planes, which leads to ends in miscal.
So how does that link to the terror?
How does that link to the terror? It's
Yeah.
two scenarios.
So, okay, so look, how is it a terror subpoint? Like, you're talking about failure to beat Al-Shabaab, but then you're linking your first card you read to US-China war knowing existential.
Well, the first card we read makes two claims. It makes claims that the bases are key to Al-Shabaab, but right now they're going to be pushed out by China, and it makes claims that if we continue to have presence there, that's going to lead to a miscalculation. There's two impacts. Could I have a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the bottom of your terror case. You say evidence about how violence in the northeastern regions is likely to expand. This is about Boko Haram operating in Nigeria. Why isn't that enough to trigger your impact?
I mean, we'd say it's enough to expand, like we say in case, and that leads to mass instability that escalates conflict. We tell you African instability as a whole goes to your house to Somaliland.
But if Finnegan says that this violence is happening in Boko Haram and in Nigeria, how is solving in Somalia enough to solve? And why does that not also just trigger the impact?
Because we tell you that affirming breeds that terror recruitment. We're going against recruitment, not the link.
But it's for a different group of terrorists and a different on the other side of the continent.
Maybe we'd say it is
The evidence says Nigeria. Okay, that's gross.
then. Sounds good.
Let me run like 10 seconds. Think of it like that. That is 20 seconds. Okay, that was in the dot. Oh, shield, not for sure. Normally I would send the doc, but my computer's been really slow, so creating one takes like 5 minutes. So I got it in the email there.
Yeah, it's body of the card is fine. What? It's body of the card. Body of the card.
Okay, I just got it. Let me hear. Okay, cool. We're ready whenever.
If anyone's not ready, let me know, please. It's gonna be like some top shelf stuff, and then I'm gonna go link by link on the 3 links that they read. So, here's some questions. Starting time on my first word. First, realize that the U.S. doesn't go in anyways. All three of their links rely on U.S. presidents. They literally tell you, like, specifically, U.S. presidents what brings in foreign aid. But we would tell you that Trump doesn't recognize Somaliland. There's a laundry list of reasons. That's why Webb writes in last December that increasingly isolationist Republicans leave Somaliland behind, not a pillar of America first. But Trump is likely to deprioritize Africa, focusing on Europe and the Middle East, the border, and China. Egypt may be a major roadblock, is a major supporter of Somalia. With the two certain to strengthen ties, it is unlikely that Trump would squander relations over Somaliland, but also to prevent shifting course. Somalia remains an active partner against militant groups, and the recent rise of al-Sham causes caution. At that point, you know that if the U.S. never goes in there in the first place, none of their links trigger. But we would also say that basing isn't necessary anyway, because the Somaliland economy is currently strong, and our evidence post-date, the Saxafi media writes last year that in recent years, Somalia's economy has experienced growth with increased investment in infrastructure, trade, and recovery. The best boost charge after a decade. Our evidence analyzes multiple years, whereas theirs analyzes one, and it's an older report as well. But also, we return it because these safety and health arguments and all these terrorism arguments rely on foreign aid, so we're going to contend that all of this is never the solution. But Somaliland's government has to be held accountable if they can't rely on foreign aid, creating long-term growth. As Harris 11 writes, that in Somaliland, the absence to date of significant international aid has forced nascent government institutions to rely on domestic sources of financing. But second, we would say that recognition de-incentivizes violence. As Harris 11 continues, the difficulties of obtaining recognition provide concrete incentives for elites to surrender identity claims and thus maintain the legal existence of the state. The relative lack of existence of anything to fight over has reduced the incentive for the various factions within Somaliland. But also, we would say that aid always hurts growth, causing Somaliland to be beholden to foreign powers. As Norman 23 writes, the absence of international aid is a key reason for its success, as foreign investment has intensified competition over the state and amongst powerful local business actors. At that point, you're damning Somaliland once you open the floodgates in the app world. But turn it again, because aid causes corruption, which at best means the increase in stability broadly. As say 23 writes, that FDI can create instability in a country, leading to the exploitation of the benefits from investment through corrupted networks. FDI influence can increase social inequality and trigger domestic conflicts. The FDI is going to benefit only a small number of people. The benefits of foreign investments can be captured easily by the government. But let's talk about piracy specifically. Right now, piracy is on the fall. As Deminel 24 writes, that data shows piracy threats fell to the lowest level in 30 years in the first 9 months of 2024, reporting 79 incidents. They decreased from 99 thanks to multilateral naval operations, improved ships, and enhanced navigation. At that point, since you know that piracy is on the fall right now, and at the top of case, Audrey tells you that terrorism is on the fall right now, the status quo is a really great scenario. But we would say turn on maritime terror. Zara writes last year, the decision to recognize Somalia enables al-Shabaab to recruit and expand operations beyond Somalia's borders, as coordination between al-Shabaab and the Houthis will only add fuel to the fire to engulf the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. But let's talk specifically about terror. The app reignites terror, as Phillips 24 writes, that Somalia posed to Somaliland's independence the threatens to expel troops, helping them fight al-Shabaab. Somalia's campaign had the upper hand. Its quarrel has allowed al-Shabaab to regain momentum, as al-Shabaab is using Ethiopia, taking Somali territory to recruit nationalistic youth. The dispute delayed a 20,000 AU military force critical to fending off al-Shabaab. Let's talk specifically about aid at the very bottom. We would say that aid isn't necessary because remember, classify the evidence that the Somaliland economy is currently strong. At that point, you prefer the most recent and post-dated evidence in the round telling you that right now the Somaliland economy is thriving. But also extend Harris 11 at the top of the case, which tells you that Somaliland's government has to be held accountable if they're going to rely on foreign aid. At that point, the weighing is really, really simple, because you can see at the point where if the U.S. is never going into the Horn of Africa, you never see either three of the links trigger. But also on time frame, you're always preferring us, because Audrey and I tell you that the instant that you affirm, and that is when you see this war instability happen, because right now tensions are currently on the decline. The instant you reverse any progress, at that point the time frame is really, really clear. On civil war and on terror, both are down. You reverse any progress in their world, at that point it's a really easy neck ballot.
Cool. We're gonna take prep. Go 37. Paragraph until the.
Are you good?
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna take a second.
Oh, there's the flow at. The flow goes right here.
Those 2 seconds.
Okay, great.
Case staircase. Okay. Okay. On basing one, they say that the U.S. isn't going to recognize it. A, they said in their case that they were going to recognize it. They're not allowed to sever that. B, if the African Union it does recognize it first, that takes out all of their reasons why we wouldn't, because the African Union would set a global precedent. They've conceded the Schwartz evidence, which says that it would enable multilateral engagement, which solves back on all of those things, because no country would oppose it, because everybody would have come to a consensus on it and see the arguments that like Trump is going to get distracted. Don't matter. It's not that hard to recognize it. They say the Somaliland economy is strong. There's no impact to this, or we're not going to go for the poverty argument. Then they say that aid causes like dominance or something. There's no impact to this. We'll answer the rest of the aid stuff on their case because they also made aid arguments there. On the argument that says piracy is down, we're not going for piracy, so it doesn't matter. They say that maritime trade is, or they say that it's going to increase maritime, maritime terrorism. That is about the MOU, which should have triggered it. And if we have bases in the region, it doesn't matter if there's more recruitment, because our evidence indicates that they would have the weapons and tools to solve back on that recruitment. I.e., they would not be able to do any terrorist actions because we would just have bases in the region that could solve back. Then they say that then they say that it's going to reignite stuff. That's just a cross application of their case. They say that it's going to cause people to push out Ethiopian forces. They consider the Schwartz evidence, which indicates that we would work multilaterally to enhance Somaliland's security incentives, because we would do it through the body of the African Union. Then they conceded all of our arguments that say that when we have basing in Somalia or in Djibouti, that causes miscalculation because we are so close to China. I.e., China shoots a laser at us or aims it at a plane, and we perceive that as an actual attack, which causes us to spiral out into an actual war. I know it was hidden in the terrorism argument, but that is not a reason why they are allowed to drop it. When we see that, we see great power, whirlpool, talmadage. It was so conceded, so clean, their case. On Civil War, one non-unique conflict now. I see 118. Tensions of intensified military activities observed with learned to prepare forces on both sides of Somaliland to conduct movements in a rigorous seeking escalation. SEC forces are also mobilizing both sides to prepare for confrontation with no efforts to resolve. 2. Independence is popular in terms of election. Measure 22. The fact that their unions is not evidence Somaliland election control. Every country disagrees with this policy. What matters is authorities Somaliland conducts elections in contested areas. There is presumably unanimity of opposition, which there is no evidence Somaliland's referendum for. Independence passed with 97% of the vote. Cut the card there. 3. The SEC land isn't in charge anymore. New government ensures equality. Counter 24. What do you need when the election promise to include marginalized region, be side landing or inclusive side landing? Some clans would be a major priority to institute equitable governance across Somaliland's region to address clan tensions. 4. Basing solves if the U.S. has bases in the region, then it cannot escalate because nobody will want to attack if the U.S. is just going to crack down on you, so it turns their case. 8. Like, they give a bunch of stuff about 8, so I'm going to answer it here. 8 is good. Meta-analysis of the most recent studies. Ronald is 17. Don't be fooled by individual aid programs that have not worked. Aid programs that saved millions. Evidence is contested years ago, but the preponderance of researchers suggested a positive impact and sensible adjustments models. A consistent positive relationship emerged. AIDS helped 9 million farmers improve nutrition for 18 million children, supported education. Got there. And there's Said evidence concedes FDI is good for peace. We read blue. Said 23. Investment will not have an impact on economic growth of a host country directly increasing the employment rate and benefiting the local workforce. This impact on employment rates will further contribute to peace. More people have decent work and pay. People have the opportunity to accumulate economic assets that they can turn back into the economy. FDI can create viable jobs for young people through employment opportunities. The key component to achieve sustainable peace. High unemployment rates are said to say heavy causation compared to socioeconomic inequality. Cut the there. Skip the rest. Terror. 1. Turn into recognition costs Somaliland to terror. Bridge up 13. Non-recognition within the economic situation deteriorates. 70% of the youth population is unemployed. Somalians do not see chance for prosperity. Legitimate means they may resolve activities that endanger communities and the region not invoke great terrorism. 2. Al-Shabaab is growing in power against sovereigns. 24. Al-Shabaab is stronger than perceived to achieve large scale success. Al-Shabaab inspires more commitment than the government has launched several attacks on bases. Somali military civilian-led troop contributors have not been able to cut the card there. Better than their evidence because they're talking about counties in Kenya, not on the ground realities in Somaliland. 3. AU withdrawals, inevitable confidence and cost. Balloons 24. The mission in Somaliland is scheduled to leave by December 2024. Cut the card there. 4. Counter-terror skip that. 4. Terrorists exploit AU ambiguity and internal tensions. Section 25. They're going to contribute to continue to charge even before and the start burning people 1,000 soldiers. Ethiopia contributes to unspecified number. The number of Egypt will continue to remains unclear. Egypt and Ethiopia at odds to the plan to forces create an obstacle and stir political conflict there. Then Trump's Islamophobia, Trump's recruitment, empiric screen, Guardian 16. Oswald used to clip Trump into the latest recruitment field featuring Trump's call to ban all Muslims. 7. Somalia rejected Ethiopian forces. Gar 24. Somalia rejected Ethiopia's intent to join ASEM, signaling Ethiopia's involvement in peacekeeping. Y'all ready? Cross.
Yeah. I'm gonna can I take flex prep and ask you something real quick?
Yeah.
What card are you talking about where we say that the US will recognize Somaliland?
One and C Schwartz.
Sports?
Yeah.
Okay. We're on coverage. All right. That was 15 for prep. Do you mind if I ask the first question for cross?
Yep.
All right. What's like the bright line on the China war from terrorism?
It's not about terrorism. The argument is just the US has troops in the region.
You guys
Causes
say the
missed out.
second link is terror, right? From Al Shabaab.
What?
Isn't that
That's a different argument.
no? Well, that's what I'm asking. No, in your guys' second sub point about Al Shabaab causing like
There's
actual
two arguments in the
instability.
sub point.
Okay. Well, you guys. Anyways, what's the bright line? Like, when does this U.S.-China war happen?
Probably like tomorrow-ish. Can I have it?
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about aid. Can you give me an example of a country that had war that was caused by aid?
I can give you like examples of conflict that has been fueled by aid, or like that has been exacerbated by aid.
Is there conflict in Somaliland now?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, that's great. You can have a question.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So when we're talking about like an actual civil war, right?
Yeah.
You guys are saying it's non-unique because there's currently like conflict in Somaliland. Can you expand on that? Like, what does that conflict look like?
What?
What does that conflict look like in Somaliland? It's the
Civil
first card
war.
I'll read on civil war.
We just say that people are gonna like have conflict happen now, i.e. there's like skirmishes happening between different clans because there's disagreements over a variety of things, which means there's like on the track to escalate to civil war now.
Okay.
Let's talk about this. Yeah, sure. Let's talk about this maritime terror stuff.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of when it happened historically?
Wait, sorry. Where on the
You tell me that maritime terror is going to happen.
Oh, on the piracy turn?
Yeah.
Okay, so no, what we're telling you is I didn't.
But that's piracy, not terror.
Yeah, we're saying
Okay.
that like maritime terror gets exacerbated, but what we would tell you, it's increasing recruitment. I don't know like an exact example that happened before, but the warning is pretty clear that like because of this recognition that that is going to increase the amount of ideological support for them. So that is what you increase maritime terror.
Oh, you're gonna question.
Yeah. Let's okay. On the AU stuff. So the Schwartz card that we read says that the AU has like international legitimacy, right?
The part of the Schwartz card that you read that's important to us
Okay.
that says besides considering its own interests, countries look to the AU. If accepted, Somaliland would be allowed to
But
join the
if
UN.
we can uniquely give you a reason why the US is different than any country in the world because of like Trump's ideological, at that point, how does like you still see the US going there? Because like we agree
Okay,
that
well,
there's
we line by
international
line it, but even in that case, our argument is just that they would be required that like if they're in the UN, then the US has to recognize them and do deals with them, etc. Like they'd be an internationally recognized country. Also, our argument is just that if they see international recognition, then there is nothing that Trump has to lose because he's like, oh, they're already recognized by these countries. I'm not going to create extra tensions by recognizing them.
I got you.
Cool. That's correct.
I'll take running.
that?
That was a minute 35 plus was like 20, so we're in a minute. All right, I'm not introduced.
Let's be honest.
It's going to start at.
Cool.
All right, anybody not ready? My time will begin. Now, at the top, remember Webb in December, the U.S. doesn't go in and Trump won't recognize Somaliland for a laundry list of reasons. They just say the U.S. would recognize asset in our case. Our card says UN, not U.S. They don't warrant uniquely how the UN links into the U.S. recognition, even if the U.S. is in that organization. Then SM24 basing isn't necessary. The Somaliland economy is strong. Our evidence post-dates. It analyzes multiple years, but they only analyze one. And remember the term they dropped, Harris 11, that safety and health arguments to all rely on foreign aid. We're going to contend that aid and dependency are never a solution, but Somaliland's government has to be held accountable if they cannot rely on foreign aid, creating long-term growth. Harris 11 recognition de-incentivizes violence, and the term Norman 23, the aid would hurt growth, causing Somaliland to be beholden to foreign powers, and state 23, the aid causes corruption at best, which means they increase instability broadly. On terror, they say we conceded miscalc because of Djibouti. They have a super staking link chain right here. They just mentioned Djibouti, then jumped to terror, then back to U.S. China war. There's zero warranting on this side how they access this existential risk. But onto economy, they concede everything. Luke tells you in rebuttal, the aid isn't necessary because Somaliland economy is strong. Our evidence is 11 months more recent, and our evidence is analysis of multiple years over theirs. They don't have any on economy. Go to our side of the flow. We're dropping off to our C2 and onto our C1. They have no offense on terror. Go to our C1 of civil war. They say conflict's happening now. It's a small conflict and not a national destabilization like the app. They say independence is popular. It's ISAC control and they don't. They say the ISAC clan isn't in charge anymore. Prefer the ignore 24 evidence. The tensions are falling now. That's what's important. They say if U.S. has bases in the region, it can't de-escalate. We know, that the U.S. doesn't go in. They say aid's good, maybe aid, but FDI is different, and that's our argument. And then they say SAID 23 concedes that FDI is good for peace. SAID says it's specifically in Somaliland, FDI is bad, and they miss that. It's Somaliland specific. That's the most specialized piece of evidence in the round. But on civil war, post-election, Somaliland conflict is de-escalating and clans are cooling down now, affirming ensures inter-clan conflict because ISAC got power in Somaliland, and four other clans oppose because they feel military and financial aid will give the ISAC clan power to take control. All it takes is a few guns to start a conflict, and Somaliland lacks internal legitimacy, meaning any attempted state fails. International legitimacy without internal legitimacy is uniquely bad because if the state against internal opponents would cause rebellion. The impact of civil war because clan infighting A increases instability throughout the region, and B increases opportunities for terrorists on the way. Prereq because it increases regional instability they can't solve. Prereq leads to increased terror opportunities and triggers all of their impacts. And where the FDI drives the wealth gap between foreign elites leading to structural violence, it's invisible violence that goes unsolved at the expense of larger, bigger, less likely threats that compounds over time and outweighs on magnitude every single time. And cross-supplier linked to their impact. International legitimacy without internal legitimacy means we don't solve for the impacts, and Somali intentions proves. At the end of the day, that they don't access extinction on the economy, they don't access their great power war on piracy, and they have a really shaky link chain on terror. We're always best on your impacts because we know, we have the prereqs on regional instability, and we're always the most likely impact with our war instability leading to civil war. For those reasons, Carrollton is brought to the game.
Cool. We're gonna take that. We have one. We have 2 seconds left.
Take 2. Halfway night. This is a super clean act ballot. The act enables U.S. military basing in Somaliland. Both countries want the troops, but they can't get them because of a lack of recognition. The act leads U.S. recognition because the AU sets a precedent that can be followed by other states. It alleviates all of the concerns that their evidence is talking about, and their own Schwartz evidence says that the UN is going to recognize, which includes the U.S., especially because the U.S. is a member of the P5, which means they have a veto over any members. Their Schwartz evidence just makes the argument that they causes U.S. recognition that leads to spill over to the UN and includes America. And they can see our Schwartz evidence. It says that AF causes peaceful mediation through the African Union with Somalia, which makes U.S. recognition super easy to happen and prevents any of the conflicts that they talk about. It's pretty easy to find that the U.S. affirms post the act happening. Their evidence doesn't account for what the AU recognizes, and we're still okay. Vote out on the terror miscalc scenarios. Right now, the U.S. base in Djibouti, which is very unstable because China is super close by and literally shooting lasers at our planes, which causes miscalc, which conceded evidence says will lead to nuclear war. This is a conceded nuclear war scenario in rebuttal, triggering immediately. It's super clean to vote here. What? Yes, and it leads to extinction because of miscalc, because the weapons are intermingled in Chinese capacities. Then they just say we're super messy, but the evidence makes the claims very clearly for you. But also the affirmative enables more effective cooperation with Somalia and Somaliland on counterterror, which is key to ensure that we are able to prevent al-Shabaab from expanding, which causes large-scale African instability, which is highly likely to lead to great power war and conflagration, which also goes nuclear.
Let's just send weapons.
Yeah, let's just send weapons to Somaliland, which are highly effective. When they say that our link chain is messy, all of the evidence is very clear in what it says. You can look to the evidence if you want to. This is practically, you can see the scenario, you should vote out immediately. Prefer us for a few reasons. First, we are try or die. They can see that miscalc is imminent, which means you have to vote affirmative to solve for this. This outweighs their time frame scenario because it is happening immediately. Then, on magnitude, because their argument is small scale, whereas we are ultimately an extinction impact, which you prefer over theirs. Then, on Turn's case, because you prefer us on Turn's case because bases in the region are key to stabilize the Somaliland state and create legitimacy, which prevents clan wars from breaking out. This is a pretty much conceded Turn's case scenario. Onto their case. It's game over when they concede the Mesrvi evidence, which tells you that 97% of Somalilanders supported recognition when they had a referendum on it. They say it's just the Isaac clan, but no, the referendum had 99% turnout. There was wide-scale support for recognition. Their evidence is from Somali State News. You support ours instead. It's a very conceded vote for the affirmative here, but then remember that the new president specifically is a member of the Isaac clan.
He's not.
It's not a member of the Isaac clan, is moving towards equality, which means that their Somaliland recognition is less likely to cause this and that base is solved. But then on the A scenario, we are not in an A scenario. A does not a turn to our case, but they have a couple big issues when Oliver gives you a re-highlight of their Said evidence, which tells you that aid is super, super good and overwhelms all the negative issues because people have so much access to more economic growth. When their own evidence concludes that aid is good, and that's a clear reason why you don't vote on the aid scenario. And we give you the Reykjavik evidence, which tells you that, which is specific to Somaliland. We give the Reykjavik evidence, which gives you a meta study of 50 countries and tells you that overall aid is always good for the economy. Affirm.
All right, good for cross.
Yes.
All right, I'll start that clock now. So on your argument of terror, if they're shooting planes right now, when do we see your extinction scenario?
I said tomorrow, last crop.
But can you tell why did it happen like that? Like, why did your impact not trigger if they were actively
They probably got lucky with the last plane.
Like, how many planes have there been? Have they gotten lucky every single time? Because you make
Well, I don't hit very many planes. Our argument is just there are 2 bases next to each other, causes imminent miscalc. Jackson's weighing is pretty clean. If there is going to be nuclear war in the status quo, we need to stop that because we can't do anything if it happens. Nobody cares when the dinosaurs died as long as they did die.
But you make it out like planes are getting shot every single day. If planes are getting shot every single day, then why haven't we seen a single thing?
I mean, if we want a warrant, which is not a claim really made in summary or rebuttal, or especially rebuttal when it's conceded. But if you want a warrant, you can look to the fact that Trump's president now, and that Trump is probably more likely to overreact to a situation than Biden would have been, because Biden probably was not asking every day for an update on U.S. planes being shot. So that's probably.
But Trump's going to be asking for an update every single day about planes.
Yeah, but Trump's going to get really pissed if someone shoots our planes. Like, let's be honest, he's really pissed at China in general.
Okay.
Like, also, it's just too late in Grand Cross to be pushing on this uniqueness claim.
Here's my question.
Yeah, we'll take a question. Let's go to Civil War. Why don't bases solve Civil War again?
I mean,
we tell you the U.S. doesn't go in.
Yeah, like we would contest that we have defense on bases, but what we would say is that, like, one, you still like concede that right now there are bases in like Somaliland, right?
No.
There are bases in
I thought-
Djibouti.
Sorry. I mean in the Horn of Africa, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't prevent civil war within Somaliland.
Okay, but what I'm saying is at the point where like we would say like one, we have defense on bases to the point where like we would say it's a wash there. But on civil war, like we would say bases, okay, if whatever, we'll say that if bases like go in and they work, then they can solve for civil war.
Okay,
Okay.
when did Somaliland vote? Like, when did they find this 97%?
That's one.
It was
Like, what year?
2001.
Okay, so
But
like,
there
why is
have-
that still relevant
There
today?
haven't been any
Because there is
votes
no
since
more
then.
recent study.
Well, our Aguiar 24 evidence so far that's telling you that like the people, I know you say like the current leader is an Isak, right? But our Aguiar evidence from 2024 still tells you that the Isak clan has most of the power within Somaliland, and so far has-
Nowhere in Aguiar does it say that.
and maybe sorry, probably not that card,
In the second
but
card.
yes, it's
The Batten evidence?
I'm not.
Okay, but our argument at least proves that the Isak are by far the dominant clan, which means there is no reason that your scenario can happen.
We have a minute left.
Gonna start on the next side of the flow and civil war and go to the base. Aaron's not ready. Start on civil war, it's really, really clear. Her unit that Aguiar 24 tells you that tensions in Somaliland have de-escalated and you see peace on the way right now, but they're going to get up here and tell you that you've seen like some kind of conflict in Somaliland right now anyways, but they've conceded, as Audrey tells you in the last speech, that this is a small conflict and it's completely different from any kind of actual national destabilization that happens. At that point, so they concede what Audrey tells you in the last speech, and you know that this small conflict is completely different from any civil war. That means that right now, the status quo is really, really good. What's damning is that affirming ensures inter-clan conflict because the Eastoks have power in Somaliland. Other four clans oppose them because they feel that the military aid and financial aid will give the Isak clan the more power to actually take control. All it takes is a few guns to start conflict, and then there's already talks of eventual war. And Somaliland also lacks any internal legitimacy, meaning any attempt at a state would fail international legitimacy without internal legitimacy is uniquely bad because it puts the state against internal opponents, which causes rebellion. At that point, it's really, really clear here. But then on foreign aid, they're going to tell you, like our Said evidence tells you that FDI is good for peace, but our Said evidence specifically tells you that in Somaliland, foreign aid will be damning insofar as it's always going to be predatory lending, and at that point, you always see a damn Somaliland in their world on the scale of the economy, but on the way. And Audrey does really, really well here. She tells you that first, remember, it's a prereq because increasing regional stability is always more important. They can't solve for anything without that, but also increased terror opportunities triggers all of their impact. And remember that FDI drives wealth wealth gap between the poor and elites, leading to structural violence, which is always going to be the biggest impact in the round. When you see a repeat on scope, I mean, you always, it's generational impact, I mean, you always have the biggest impact in the round there on scope. Let's talk specifically about basing on terrorism. Remember, we would tell you that terrorism is at an all-time low right now, and at that point, you know we're going to see their impact trigger, but also extend what we tell you that that we are actively like seeing what they're going to tell you triggers their impact, and we haven't seen their impact trigger. They're just going to get up here and tell you, oh, it's going to happen tomorrow. But insofar as they haven't actually been able to warrant why it didn't happen in the past, other than they just got lucky, you have no idea what this scenario actually looks like. At that point, you're always voting on the best way to impact in the round, which is going to be our terror impact.
Cool. We have 2 seconds.
Okay.
Cool.
He interpreted with it.
Pretty good? Cool. They conceded in the last speech that once we recognize Somaliland via the AU, that allows them to recognize it with the US, because the US knows that the tensions are de-escalated, that they will not cause any conflict with anybody else. So thus Trump recognizes Somaliland immediately after the AU recognizes. That's really key. When we do the affirmative, it enables military basing in Somaliland, i.e. the US would move its bases from Djibouti to Somaliland, which is uniquely better. A, because they've conceded the miscalc scenario since rebuttal. When we have moved our bases out of Djibouti, it no longer allows Chinese planes to perceive us close to them in the region and sort of spiral out of control. They launch lasers at our planes, etc., which is really bad. They just tell you, we don't know when it's going to happen. But one, they've conceded that try or die outweighs, because we know that we are going extinct now. If that spills over and causes nuclear war, because Chinese weapons are intermingled with their conventional ones. But 2, even if it is not, they've conceded that Trump is uniquely escalatory, and that each day we see more and more attacks, which means that it's highly likely for this to cause war. B, they've conceded the terror scenario that right now, or B, they've conceded the terror scenario that when we have basing, it allows us to do things like give weapons to Somaliland. It enables us to do coordination together, which is able to solve back on things like Al-Shabaab. They just say Al-Shabaab is decreasing, but they've conceded the evidence analysis, which is that their evidence is only analyzing places in Kenya, whereas our evidence is universally in Somaliland, and there's Somalia, and says that overall Al-Shabaab is increasing right now. So we saw better, which is good because it causes regional instability, which draws in great powers, causes nuclear war. Weighing is really simple. First is try or die. They've conceded that extinction outweighs because it is irreversible. We can't do anything if we have gone extinct, and it does not matter when we go extinct as long as we do, which means that the vote for the only side that can do anything. 2, they've conceded the turns case. If we have bases in the region, nobody can attack each other. It does not matter if they are U.S. bases or not. This was not answered in the last speech. So if we have bases, it solves back their case. 1, they've conceded that if everybody supports it, if 97% want independence, there is no reason why there is going to be clan wars, because they would be so small scale. 2, they've conceded that the new president is going to cause negotiations and reduce the chance of having anything bad happen because he's not a member of the Esau clan and is focused on reducing clan tensions. Then on the aid stuff, they've conceded 1, the meta-analysis concludes that aid overall increases the economic growth, and B, that their own evidence says that it is good. Their evidence talking about Somaliland and says that aid in the region, foreign direct investment, would increase economic experiences, which would cause less poverty and overall less instability. It's so clean we're the only side with an extinction argument. Vote out. Good round.
Good round. Thank you.
When I vote after you vote neg on Tavern, that's the side flip up here.
Just vote for Nueva.
Vote no way.
These are our